This is Matthew from Blue Matador, the alert automation service. There are multiple ways to get custom error pages in S3 and/or Cloudfront. To start, let's create an S3 bucket with a static website. Let's start by creating a bucket. We can put in any name. It says DNS compliant. You'll want to make sure that that's the case. You'll also want to make sure that you don't put periods in it. For example, if I put bucket.bluematador.com, this is a bad idea. It will come down to SSL later, and I'll show that. I'm just going to call mine some jumble of letters because I don't care, and they're all unique, and I don't want to fight it right now. We pick the region, and you can copy settings. I'm just going to do it from scratch. We don't need any of these. We don't really need encryption because it's a public website. We don't need any tags or versioning. We don't need advanced or CloudWatch metrics. So let's keep going. On the permissions, this is going to be an entirely public bucket. Anybody will be able to access it, so I'm going to disable the blocking of public, access control lists, and public policies. All four of these are disabled for a public bucket. Then I'm going to review it. Looks good to me. Create the bucket. Now that I have the bucket, I'm going to go and upload my pages into it. I have 3 files. I'm not going to grant any public read access at this point. I'm going to do it in the bucket policy instead. I also pick my storage class at this point. Standard is really good. If you're not getting a lot of traffic, infrequent access is good. Or, if you don't care about losing objects, reduced redundancy is good. It's the cheapest. I'm just going to do standard. I don't need encryption. The metadata would be a good place to put caching, but it's outside of the scope of this. So I'm going to continue on and upload those files. To test it, I'm going to take the name of the bucket, a new tab, access denied. It didn't work for a number of reasons, the first of which is I'm using the S3 object get, and that requires the exact name of the object to be specified. One of my files was called index.html, but it still doesn't work. The reason why, now that I've fixed the URL, is because the permissions aren't there. So let's go into permissions for the bucket. All of these are false. I unchecked them all, but I still haven't made the bucket public. So let's go to the bucket policy and create a new policy. I'm going to use the policy generator here at the bottom of the screen. It's kind of hidden. But before that, let's copy the ARN because we'll need it. This policy generator, we're going to say it's an S3 bucket policy. The principal is everyone. This is who can use this policy, who this policy applies to. And we're going to say you can not delete, not do anything else, not get bucket. We're going to say get object. That's the one thing that you need to serve a static website. And it's going to apply to everything in this bucket. So that ARN and then /star. We'll add the statement, generate the policy. I'm going to copy and paste this whole thing back into S3 configuration. It's going to give me a warning. It tells me, we recommend you don't have a public policy. Ignore that. We want one. And now that that's there, I'll go back to my S3, refresh, and there it is. In fact, it even has HTTPS. The reason it has HTTPS is because the certificate belongs to star.s3.amazonaws.com. If you had made mybucket.bluematador.com, then mybucket.bluematador.com is no longer a subdomain of S3 AmazonAWS.com. So if you have periods in your bucket name, you will not get the automatic SSL on this type of access. At this point, I'm going to try and form my error page, given that that's what this is all about. So I'm going to put in some gibberish, hopefully get a 404, but it doesn't work. This type of access does not give you custom error pages. It'll give you the default error page from S3, which looks like this. It's an access denied. To get custom error pages, we have to go back to the S3 configuration, go to Properties, and we're going to enable static website hosting. This will do 2 things. First, it will manage an index page and an error page. And second, it will give you a new URL to access them through. So let's do this. Enable hosting. I'm going to specify an index and an error document. I don't need redirection rules, so we'll just save this as is. If I go back to my S3, it's still going to be broken because remember, there's a new URL. Instead, if I use that new URL, I now get it. And in fact, if I go to a page that doesn't exist, I get my error page. So the upside of using the static website generator is you get access to the index and error page documents. Now let's create a web distribution in Cloudfront so that we can get caching and distribution and those custom error pages. So here I am in Cloudfront, create distribution. It's going to be a web distribution. I'm going to give it the origin domain name. You can specify either the name of the bucket.s3.amazonaws.com, or you could specify the name of the statically hosted website that we configured earlier. I'm going to use the Amazon S3 bucket. The advantage to using the S3 bucket is you can specify different error pages for each different kind of error. A 404 is different than a 403, which is different than a 412. With the statically hosted website, S3 will serve up that error page for you, and the options are limited. So here we are with my origin domain name. I don't need to specify a path or an ID. It's all been pre-filled, everything that I need. I'm going to say redirect HTTP to HTTPS because I like SSL. We're also going to allow get and head. Basically, everything is as it should be. If you'd like to enforce caching, because maybe you failed to specify earlier, which I did, I'm going to say everything needs to be cached for at least 1 day. And I'm going to ignore everything else. It takes a few minutes to get going, so I'll be back. And now our web distribution is complete. It's deployed, it's enabled, and now we can go look at our S3 bucket behind the scenes. To do that, we're going to take this domain name, copy and paste it, and it doesn't work. The reason why is because we did the S3 domain name, not our S3 static website. This is good for CDNs and whatnot, but not great for index pages. So let's go to index.html, and there it is. So now we have access to our index.html. However, all of our 404 pages and all the error pages, they're broken. They look terrible. They're bad. To fix this, we're going to go back to the Cloudfront distribution settings. We're going to go to error pages and create a custom error response. Because we use the S3 bucket instead of the S3 static website hosting, we can specify any error code we'd like, including 500, 501, and all the range of 400s as well. This is less relevant in S3 and more relevant if you're supporting your own ELB or application. But for us, we want to do 403 forbidden, because if you remember, that's what we got here. We got an access denied forbidden. So 403 forbidden. Let's give it 300 seconds, 5 minutes by default, and we can customize the error response. If you don't, effectively what you're doing here is specifying this error caching minimum TTL. But we also want to specify a page, error.html. And we want to specify 404 not found instead of forbidden. There we go. We'll create that rule, and it'll take a few more minutes to propagate. There we go. Now that the Cloudfront distribution is once again enabled and deployed, we can go see that this broken link, this bad URL, goes to our error page instead of that default Cloudfront XML page that's not so helpful. It's also the case that we don't need the index.html anymore. And there you have it. We have an S3 bucket that has static website hosting with error pages, custom error pages, and we have a Cloudfront distribution with error pages. Either one works, and they both have their advantages and disadvantages. Do the one that's right for you. Thanks for watching. To proactively verify your AWS infrastructure is set up correctly, try Blue Matador, the alert automation service.